What's up, everybody? This is your boy Tech G back with another video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about single platform software, cross-platform software licensing, and software installation best practices. So let's go ahead and get into the lesson. All right. So single platform software is software that meets the requirements of a particular operating system. For example, Microsoft Windows is currently designed to run on Intel compatible 32-bit or 64-bit processors. Corel Draw is a single platform graphics application that runs on Microsoft Windows but does not run on Mac or Linux. Cross-platform software is software that is implemented on multiple computing platforms. Cross-platform software may be divided into two types. One requires individual building or compilation for each platform that it supports, and the other can be directly run on any platform without special preparation. For example, Adobe Creative Cloud and Microsoft Office 365 are cross-platform software that can run on Mac and Microsoft Windows. Microsoft Office 365 can also run on iOS and Android mobile platforms. Compatibility concerns. So when dealing with cross-platform applications, some compatibility issues may present themselves when you're moving files between platforms, such as font substitutions. Basically, font substitutions can take place if the same fonts are not available on the originating device and the targeted device. Font substitutions could significantly change the appearance of documents, presentations, and graphic designs. Another issue would be differences in photo handling support between Windows and Mac OS, or between Windows and iOS or Android. That could cause problems when viewing or using images. Another issue could be differences in built-in video and music playback support between Windows and Mac OS, or between Windows and iOS or Android. That could cause problems when playing music or playing videos. And another issue could be differences in feature support across platforms that could cause problems such as opening files or viewing file contents. Microsoft Office apps such as PowerPoint and Excel include compatibility checkers that help find issues with older versions, support for new features. So if considering a cross-platform app, some vendors offer comparison documents that you can consult to see if there are differences in how the app works on different platforms. There can also be issues when running apps made for older versions of Windows on newer versions. Licensing. A software license is a legal instrument, usually by way of contract law, with or without printed material, governing the use of redistribution of software. Under United States copyright law, all software is protected in both source code and object code forms, unless that software was developed by the United States government, in which case it cannot be copyrighted. Software piracy, the use of software that has not been licensed, has been a major problem for the industry since the first personal computers were introduced in the late 70s. The use of unlicensed software can lead to heavy fines for companies that are caught using it, and unlicensed software obtained through illegal download sites can carry malware as an unwanted bonus. The next following sections, we're going to discuss various types of software licenses. Licenses are often referred to as end user license agreements, or EULAs. So let's talk about single use license. A single use license is the authorization that grants one user the right to use a software package. It may grant the user the right to install the software on only one machine, or it may authorize installation on any number of machines as long as the same license is the only user. Some single-use licenses permit software to be installed into a virtual machine, but others permit installation onto physical hardware only. As a side note, a virtual machine, also known as a VM, exists in software but looks and acts like a physical computer to the operating system and apps installed in it. A single physical computer can have several VMs running on it. Virtualization is the process of creating a VM and installing an operating system and apps in it. Group license, a group use or a site license. A group use or a site license grants the usage rights to the software to a set number of users. Rather than having to assign the rights to a specific number of users, a group license enables people with certain group policy rights to access it. In practice, this means a group license can make the software available to a group of users who meet the requirements, with the flexibility to allow additional users to access the software as they are granted more rights within the group policy. Concurrent license. A concurrent license is a software license that is based on the number of simultaneous users accessing the program. It typically deals with software running in the server where users connect via the network. For example, Adobe Creative Cloud apps have a two-user concurrent license. They can be installed on two computers, managed or owned by the same user. The user can run the apps on either computer as needed, but not at the same time. If the user needs to run the apps on a third computer, the apps on the other computers are deactivated by the Creative Cloud App Manager. Don't confuse concurrent licensing with that of simultaneous licensing. For example, Microsoft Office 365 Home allows up to 5 users to install and use the product at the same time on Mac OS or Windows computers. Up to 5 tablets and 5 smartphones can also use the subscription. Open source versus proprietary. Most commercial apps are proprietary. Proprietary software is any software that is copyrighted and bears limits against use, distribution, and modification that are imposed by its publisher, vendor, or developer. Proprietary software remains the property of its owner or creator and is used by end users or organizations under predefined conditions. Windows, Mac, and iOS are considered proprietary operating systems. You have to pay for licensing. Open source software is software with source code that anyone can inspect, modify, and enhance. Open source software systems such as Linux and Android and apps such as Apache, OpenOffice, LibreOffice, and the GIMP are examples of open source software. Open source apps are typically made available free of charge. Commercial versions of open source apps charge for support and for enhancements. Subscription versus one-time purchases. So there are 2 ways to produce a software license. You have a one-time purchase. This is a single payment to license the software for as long as the user wants to use it. A one-time purchase license does not expire. Then you have a subscription. This is a monthly or yearly payment to license the software for that time period. A subscription expires if the user stops paying for it. The software might run in a reduced capability mode or stop working completely until the subscription is renewed. Also, depending upon the specific licensing agreement, a one-time purchase may not be transferable to a different computer. So on the other hand, a subscription is usually transferable. A subscription also enables users to receive frequent updates, sometimes monthly, to apps, and is usually less expensive than making a one-time purchase every year. A subscription for multiple users can be much less expensive. A one-time purchase makes sense for a single user who does not need the additional programs and services. They will not be replacing the app for at least 3 years, and they do not need frequent updates. Many established software vendors are moving to the subscription model. And the reason they're moving is because you can make more money off of a monthly subscription than a one-time purchase. All right, let's talk about product keys and serial numbers. So for the one-time software purchases, product keys and serial numbers are used to authenticate the software license. The software key or serial number must be entered before the software can be used. In some cases, the serial number must be sent to the vendor after the product is ordered to receive a product key that is entered to activate the software. With some subscription software, the user's account information is used to activate the software. With a multi-user subscription, The subscribing user sends invitations to other users, granting them permission to install and activate the software. Software installation best practices. So the following section discusses best practices and common errors to avoid when installing software. First one is read the friendly manual, RTFM. The F could stand for something else, but we're going to go ahead and say it stands for read the friendly manual. So you should always read the instructions before installing software in order to avoid problems like the following with your installation. First problem you can run into, system is not compatible with the app. So what you need to do, you need to check the system requirements on the operating system version, the processor type and speed and the RAM size. So you need to check all those requirements for the apps and compare it to your device's operating system and hardware. For Windows, you would open the Systems Properties sheet or select Settings, System, and About. For Mac, you would open the About This Mac link, which you can find at the upper left corner where the Apple is. For Linux, with the GUI, a graphic user interface, you would open a dialog such as Settings. For Linux from the command line or the terminal, you would type in the command INXI. Another issue you could run into is missed last-minute changes to the app or the installation process. So to avoid this problem, check the installation media for a README file. It could be a text file or a file you can open with most word processing programs, such as an RTF, rich text, or a Microsoft Word document file. Read it before you start the installation process. Another problem you can run into would be lost license key or serial number means no installation. So be sure to keep the packaging if it contains a license key or serial number. Without this information, you have an overpriced CD or DVD that cannot be used. If you are installing a downloaded app, check your email and save your purchase receipt and installation information. Another problem could be clean up the old before installing the new. So if you are upgrading an older version of an app, there may be special instructions before proceeding. You might need to remove or uninstall the older version first and save the preference files or your personalized settings for reuse. Another issue could be back up the old or the operating system before installing the new. So the regular backup app in Windows 10 backs up data files, but not the operating system. And the image backup utilities in older versions of Windows do not always work either. So use a third-party image backup utility as the image is the entire contents of the system drive, or the image is the entire contents of the system drive, I should say. Another issue is close other apps to avoid problems later. So frequently you are advised to close other running apps before starting the installation process. If you don't, you might have problems updating shared program file libraries. Another issue, no reboot, problems follow. So if the installation program prompts you to reboot after installation, please do it. Your new software or hardware might not work until you do so. However, if you are installing more than one program, you can reboot after installing the other apps. Another issue, have an ISO file but no optical drive. So many apps are distributed as ISOs or optical disk images files. .iso is the usual extension for these files. You can sometimes install directly from an ISO file by mounting the media. However, in some cases, you need to create an optical disk or USB install media. And the final issue could be something like unzip now, install later. So basically many apps for Windows and some for other operating systems are downloaded as a zip file or a PK zip file. To unzip these files in Windows, you can use the extract all options in File Manager. The default location for the extracted files is a folder with the same name as the zip file, but you can choose a different location if desired. To extract files in Mac, double-click the file. To extract files in Linux, you can use the GUI file manager to run the terminal command, and that command would be unzip and whatever the file name is. Reading agreements. So, as end user license agreements, also known as EULAs, An end-user license agreement is a license that gives a user the right to use a software application in some manner. EULAs are designed to enforce specific software use limitations, such as only using the software on one computer. By entering into the agreement, the user is given permission to use and benefit from the software. Sadly, the license agreement, or the EULA, is one of the least read documents in all of IT. However, it's worth reading to discover what your rights and responsibilities are. Due to some licenses being dry reading, some vendors will not permit you to click accept the agreement until you scroll through the entire window. Open source licenses are typically much less restrictive than proprietary software licenses, but they exist for the same reason, to let you know what you can and cannot do with the software. Advanced options. So if you don't change any of the usual settings for a program, you are performing a standard installation. When you select different options than usual, the installation is called a custom installation. Some typical options include the following: where to install the software, install for all users of the computer or only the current user, install all available import-export filters for documents, photos, and other files, install all software features, all software to open, all supported file types, and check for automatic updates. If you have difficulties starting your installation after installing a new operating system, either as a fresh install or as an upgrade, there are custom startup options you can use to help recover. The term safe mode is used for many of these options. In safe mode, only essential hardware and software are available, and the display might run at a lower resolution than normal. With Windows 7, you can press the F8 key or the Function plus F8 key on some keyboards to bring up a menu with the startup options such as safe mode, which loads minimal drivers, and then you have safe mode with network support that will load minimal drivers with access to your network or the internet, and then there'll be some other options as well. In Windows 10, the startup options are similar, but are accessed from either the settings menu or the advanced startup or from the sign-in screen. To start your MacBook in safe mode, hold down the left shift key when you turn it on. Some Linux distributions use the same option as Mac. For others, you change options in the boot manager, so look up the details for the distribution that you use for Linux. All right? So that is our class, ladies and gentlemen. So now let's get into some check on learning. Question number 1. You are considering a software program that can be run on Windows or on Mac OS. This is an example of which type of software. Would it be open source, cross-platform, proprietary, or site license? So software that could be run on Windows or Mac, and the correct answer would be cross-platform, because it can run on Windows and Mac. Self-explanatory. Next question. You have started to use a computer that is running an application that is 3 versions behind the current version. It was purchased and installed 5 years ago. What type of license is it using? Is it open source? Is it subscription? Is it free? Or is it one-time purchase? So you bought something 5 years ago. That software that you bought 5 years ago is 3 versions behind the current. Correct answer will be, that is a one-time purchase, ladies and gentlemen, a one-time purchase. If you were using a subscription-based, your subscription would be automatically updated. And final question. Which of the following is considered a compatibility concern? Would it be font substitution? Would it be differences in photo handling? Would it be differences in feature support? Or would it be all of the above? So which of the following is a compatibility concern? If you were switching from one system to another, or you were upgrading from an older version to a newer version, or whatever. The correct answer would be all of the above are potential issues you may encounter when you are switching from one platform to another, or you are upgrading from an older piece of software to a newer piece of software. Those are all potential issues that you may encounter. So in summary, we have talked about general application concepts and uses where we discuss single platform software, cross-platform software, licensing, and software installation best practices. For more information on this, please visit my website, technologyg.com, so that you can get read up on the latest and greatest to help you successfully pass your CompTIA IT Fundamentals Certification exam. And until next video, ladies and gentlemen, peace.